New Deal design makes things gorgeous. And so I want to introduce you to someone. First I want to stand next to him so I can get a little gorgeousness here. We have Gadi Amit, an award-winning designer who will tell us a little bit about what's exciting, what's cool. And he has 5 minutes or so to let us know how wonderful your technology is. Thank you. Gadi Amit.
Thank you very much, Sharona. Well, with such a setting the low expectations by Sharona, I better deliver here. So I'll talk about design. New Deal Design is a strategic design studio in San Francisco. We work with a lot of companies, basically just about everything that has a battery and electronics in it we've done. We've been named by Fast Company as one of the top design studios in the country. And I actually want to talk about design in the context of taking a technology and making it into a cultural icon, something that is actually ingrained into people's daily lives. And in doing so, the company who previously just had a technology may have a brand growing and developing and continuing the business model beyond the technology cycle. We strongly believe that in order to get to that, you need to get some level of simplification, some simplicity and clarity in the product configuration itself. And then on top of it, we obviously bring style. And style is a wonderful special sauce that creates excitement, excitement not only at the end consumer or the end user, but also through the investment cycle, through approaching partners, retail channels, and so on and so forth. I'm going to show quickly 4 projects. The first of them is actually a runaway success in Israel, actually dealing with a relatively low-tech Israeli staple of water purification. And following that, I'll talk a little bit more about the product.
שלום, אני זיו ואני נמאס לי לסחוב בקבוקים במדרגות, אז החלטתי לעשות מעשה. אני קורא לה עגלה 4x4. רובה הזאת עושה 300 מדרגות לליטר. תתחבא את זה, תפרוט לך את הגלגלים.
יש דרך טובה יותר לא לסחוב בקבוקים.
שכנים פה זה מכה.
תתקדמו לתמי 4 ותרגישו בהבדל.
So the product is called Tami 4 in Israel, and it's actually the first full success of a kitchen appliance that actually purifies water. And their strategy is essentially attacking the water bottle. And as you saw in the commercial, even though it wasn't in Hebrew, they're doing quite well and quite off the cuff, and they, I think, reached dominance. The design has been a central part of this product, and it's now being copied by a lot, which means that we're actually moving forward, and soon you'll see the next generation. Just to continue talking about design on a different scale, this is a computer we designed for Dell. And Dell is moving into more consumer appeal with a very strong influence by design. It's a very small product that has a lot of green technologies and reduce energy, reduce waste, and so on. Actually, the outer shell is made of bamboo. And it's been doing very well for Dell, also from an image perspective. Just to jump to a completely different scale of projects, 2 guys came to my office about half a year ago with an idea to create a little bug that basically counts calories, how much movements you do through the year, through the day, and connects to a website that you could program your goals. And we created this product that's called Fitbit and helped them get the first round of about 3 million. It plugs, basically clips anywhere in your body. We also developed a very unique user experience in the sense that at the end of the day, many people don't want to know numbers of calories or steps or miles. They want to have a little gesture of you reach your goal. And in this case, we developed this user interface that is basically a flower. And the flower grows through the day and blossoms through the end of the day, and you know that you made your goal. And that is something that could be nearly a jewel, essentially a digital jewel. Now I'm going to talk very quickly about the next project. New Deal has been one of the creators of the Better Place objects. We've done a lot of work for Better Place in the last year. This is a picture of the first electric parking lot outside of Tel Aviv. This is the charge spot, and that is a very challenging process of getting a lot of electrical laws, electronics into a very manufacturable and easy to assemble and distribute object. It's also a very simple form, and that goes back to what I said about simplicity, clarity, and style. As you can guess, it has two inlets for two cars, and that's actually an innovation in this market because it saves a lot of installation. And it's been doing very well for Better Place also in promoting its real-life presence. And if you walk around Tel Aviv, you probably see a few hundreds of these already installed. A lot of the difficulties we're dealing with are actually user interface, or essentially being very low-key in user interface and at the same time very intuitive, working with the user's intuition rather than against it. We essentially want it to disappear in the urban landscape. We don't want it to be too obtrusive or too forceful. And in doing so, we also lowering the cost. And in such way, we actually obviously supporting the Better Place business model. The last shot is a shot that we planted in front of the governor's house in Sacramento, and this was done just the day before Shai and the mayors of the Bay Area announced collaboration in California. And as much as it was published, it's going to come to the Bay Area soon in the next 2-3 years. That's all. That's New Deal design.
Awesome.
Thank you.
That's good. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much for illuminating us with what's around the corner and what's going to be in every parking area, not only in Israel, but right here in California.
Sure.
And making design beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That is our second of our morning fast and cools, and I'd like to ask the panel on cisterns and vapor to come up as we introduce them as well. We have such a fantastic group of lions and lionesses on our panel here who are leaders in the area of water technology, knowledge base, making things happen, funding them, implementing them, and making it possible for us to stay ahead of the curve in new water technologies. Israel is bringing water to the world, bringing solutions to the world. In a country that has scarce resources and scarce water, one of the things you're going to learn today is how water technologies are coming here to Los Angeles, and how the VCs are funding water technologies in Israel that will impact us tremendously in how we use our resources that become scarce. Either they get recycled redeveloped or found. We are led on this morning's panel by a very exciting person, Isabel Maxwell. Isabel is a woman who has many talents, one of which is she was part of the company and the founder of the very first search engine called Magellan. And so we have Isabel's company to thank for innovating that whole area. We also have on the panel with us some very special people. We have Isaac Applebaugh, Ron Hadar, David Nahai, Asaf Barnea, and Isabel Maxwell. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Isabel to take us on a tour of cisterns and vapor.
Hi, everyone. Is my mic working? I think it is. Welcome. It's just wonderful to be here. There are many people here, and as Sharona said, thank you again, Sharona. We've got a really important panel, great people on this panel today. Do you want to move up so that you're not separated? Oh, he hasn't come yet. It's David. We're looking for David now. Is he here in the audience? Okay, can you bring him in? It would be nice not to miss his wisdom here today. So this panel, we're going to focus on the cutting edge of technology, on chemistry, innovation around scarcity as it relates to clean tech. And all the people on this panel today are really very well placed indeed to illustrate the chemistry and the great potential for partnership and business between Israel and California. So I'm going to start. I'll make a quick introduction here as soon as David is coming. Soon as he's coming. Okay, I'm going to keep going here. I'm going to just introduce to my left here someone who needs really no introduction. It's Isaac Applebaugh. Isaac Applebaugh is he's a special limited partner at the Wesley Group, and the Wesley Group is a $125 million venture fund focused absolutely on clean tech, more later stage, though it does cover a bit of the gamut. And it has very high value add, thank you, David, because of Steve Wesley, the founder, who was the founding CFO at eBay. He was the controller of California, and he has a very special relationship with Israel. He's a wonderful human being in his own right, and his firm is lucky to have Isaac helping him source Israeli business, actually, for his firm. Isaac has many hats. Another very important hat here is that he is senior advisor to the new mayor of Jerusalem, Nir Barkat, on public-private partnership, and he is the president of the California-Israel Chamber of Commerce. And with that hat on, he's just returned from leading a very important, very successful, stellar group of venture capitalists on a clean tech mission to Israel to learn more about the secret sources of clean tech over there in Israel. We'll be hearing more about that today. Ron Hadar, who's right there at the end there, is the president and COO of Tigo Energy. And Tigo Energy is a solar energy company that just took in a second round of $10 million. Congratulations. It was a round led by IBC. And it's really a unique technology that significantly increases efficiency in solar installations. And you'll be hearing more about that from him today. Our other panelist, our second panelist, is David Nahar. Sorry, I'll go to Asaf Barnea first, actually. He's the CEO and founder of Kinross Incubator, which has created basically a business incubator that specializes in projects related to all aspects of water technology, whether it's water purifying or a new methodology of moving water through a system. And he created this business innovator in a public-private partnership with the Israeli government itself. And you see, all things that are government are not all bad. And he very pertinently to today's, he actually has a partnership, a business partnership, a significant contract with the city of Los Angeles itself, and you'll be hearing more from David about that. David Nahai is the CEO and the general manager of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. And the LAWPD is the nation's largest municipal utility. He's actually a very strong environmentalist and an attorney. He's not an engineer. And he's been quoted as saying that the LWP should be a beacon to innovators all over the world. So these are the panelists, and we're going to give each one of them 5 or 6 minutes to talk about what is really engaging and important to them as regards Israel-facing clean tech business. And after that, we're going to have some questions to start the round off, and then we'll throw it open to the audience for general speaking, okay? So I'm going to start with Yitz here, if he could tell us what he's been up to in the last year in regards to Israel-facing business and clean tech. Thank you, Yitz.
And almost probably cede half my time to Asaf, so you get a little extra time, Asaf. Okay? First of all, thank you, Isabel. Welcome, everybody. I want to mostly not speak about individual companies or individual technologies, but rather talk about the environment in Israel today and the opportunities for partnership between the U.S. and Israel in the clean tech environment. We have Tzvi Alon here, who's the chairman of the chamber, who was with me, who's a very dear friend and knows many people here. So last week we just came back. We had 42 investors with us from Northern California, Southern California, from New York, and from Europe. We also had with us, most probably one of the more interesting people we've ever taken to Israel, the CEO of the second largest energy company in the United States. And we really had no idea what we were going to find. Most of us, even people who are in the clean tech area, are fairly new to it. You know, Asaf maybe's got a little more experience than others, but basically we're all fairly new to the area. So we had absolutely no idea what we were going to find, and we were totally blown away. My last point, I'll start with my last point first. If you think about where the tech space was about 10 years ago, we are there now in clean tech. So maybe it's 10% of where the software and the communications world is now. That's where we are with clean tech. So the opportunities are absolutely enormous. And just to give you some ideas, there are no solar farms today in Israel. So we took the CEO of the second largest energy company in the United States, who said, okay, where do I put my money down? I want to start building solar farms in the Negev and create, let Israel be the leader, the way Israel is in electric cars space in solar energy. So in the solar area and the solar panel area, in both technology as well as development, huge opportunities that we found while we were there. Another area that just amazed the group was in the water desalinization in the water, something that Asaf knows a lot about and hopefully is going to share with us. But we went down to visit with IDE, with the water desalinization plant in Ashkelon, 40,000 filtering tubes. It looked like we were at a Star Trek. It was photon torpedoes. But the idea is that it's the largest water desalinization plant in the world. And these investors are looking and saying, okay, so if you want to do water, the place to do it is in Israel. And it's not just in huge factories or in huge plants. There are companies whom we met there that are leading the world in water purification. Companies we met there that detect water. This would be for you, David, water leakage, at the highest levels. So a lot of opportunities in the water space, both small and in the big area as well. I mentioned solar. Obviously, there's some very, very serious companies in Israel, BrightSource, Solel. We met a company in Israel that actually, you put one solar panel on the roof of your home, and it does both heating the water as well as heating your home. Think about that, as opposed to two different panels. So what I'd like to share with you is that we're really at the beginning, and the opportunities are for partnering venture capital, the opportunities for partnering with the largest water utility company in the country and figuring out how to do deals with Israeli companies or Israeli utilities. And I think that the sky's the limit, and we're there at the right place at the right time.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Asaf. He has going to do a little presentation to us. The remote should be down there. Is it there?
Is it on?
Did somebody take the remote away? Oh, there you go.
Questions about my height. I'm 6'8", don't ask. I should have a t-shirt like that, actually. And I did play basketball, but that was quite some time. Now I'm into water technologies. I want to share just an anecdote before my presentation. When this very impressive delegation of VCs came over to Israel, I had the privilege to host the panel with the CEO of the National Water Company in Israel, from Macrot, and the largest dripping irrigation company worldwide, which is called Netafim. And actually we're kind of traveling and looking between those huge membranes all the way up in the sky, kind of. And I actually told and shared the experience that I had when first time I visited this desalination plant in the city of Ashkelon in Israel, which is the largest reverse osmosis desalination plant worldwide. That was the time that Katrina was hitting the shores of the United States. And I was there and I was thinking to myself, this is actually where nature took over mankind. And this is where we are in this desalination plant, seeing the intake from the ocean, standing behind and kind of below those huge membranes where man took over, conquered, utilized nature for our benefit. And this is actually part of the challenge that I think with global warming, with those drivers that are pushing us, with aging infrastructure in some of those utilities worldwide, in the necessity, in the standard of living, the urbanization, this is actually major, major, major challenges that we all have to face as people on the planet. Keynote. Well, basically, talking about water, just one word about water. There's no, usually you go to a restaurant, you may get like water spilled over your shirt, and people may go to you and say, this is just water, leave that. Well, actually, there's no such thing as just water. It's like saying in the United States, either basketball or football. There's no such thing as just basketball or football. Basically, it's a world of physics, it's a world of chemistry, it's a world of software for water management, it's a world of agriculture, of energy. It seems simple, transparent, simple, but it's not. It's really not. And this is part of the challenge to bring in and to see the convergence that is happening today between the low-tech, no-tech, the valves and the pipe, and the high-tech now that is converging into this low-tech industry. This is exactly the opportunity. This is why major companies such as GE and Siemens have stepped into this market some 4 or 5 years ago with billions of dollars of acquisitions. And basically this compelling event kind of created the market, and this is why we're VCs now and private equities are looking into that. So this is just, remember, when you're talking about water, it's not that simple, obviously. Well, in Israel, really to sum up some of the unique advantages that we have, the largest desalination plant worldwide in reverse osmosis, world record in wastewater treatment plant, 75%, which is going to go to 90% of the water. The wastewater is going to be reused in Israel. This is definitely a world record. The next country to do so is in Spain. Australia, which has been suffering from a major, major drought for the last 10 years, is going to do that. Hopefully now, we've been having delegations after delegation coming over to see how to reuse water. Italy is doing that to 4 and 5%. So this is a some major expertise that we're developing in Israel throughout the years. Definitely in dripping irrigation system, the fourth largest, basically 4 largest companies in Israel, which basically captured 50% of the world market share in dripping irrigation that was invented in Israel. Unique national water carrier, largest filtration, 4th largest filtration world, and a leader in technology innovation. And if I may, this is Moses hit a rock back then in the days of the Bible. He was able to draw water out of the rock, so that could have been an innovation even back then. But since I have some of my colleagues as VCs guys, so the exit from Egypt through the ocean could have been the first exit in the water technologies, could belong to us. Who knows? But David Ben-Gurion in 1955 actually stated, this is here in the desert, and this is in 1955. He had the vision really to see desalination happening and to see the desert as a land of innovation and transform seawater into fresh water. The government in Israel has prioritized water technologies some 3 years ago and looked at it as the new high-tech industry, as a new revenue generator to be the next high-tech industry, and actually a lot of know-how which could be converted from the IT world, even from medical devices in terms of sensors and others, could be converted into water technologies. And this is now a national program sponsored by the government called New Tech, which is pushing that. Part of that program is about incubators. We have 24 incubators in Israel. Most of them are privatized by private investors. We invest between $500,000 at the minimum. So this is not like so much incubators in the States, which merely act as service provider. You pay the rent, they may take you to some training services, and you go to VCs. In Israel, we become shareholders. We invest between $500,000 and sometimes to $1 million in each startup company. So we become shareholders and board members within those companies. And the duration of those companies for the incubator, which is actually a bridge. If you have an idea, if you have a beautiful idea that was translated into an IP or even a prototype, most chances nobody will invest in that early stage. This is where we incubators come in. We provide the initial capital, we provide professional services, financial services, technical services, and we help those companies as a bridge to be ready to go to the VCs and get their first A round. Kinroat is the first and only water-dedicated incubator in Israel, and basically we were the first worldwide. I hear now a lot of incubators, water incubators, going to be established probably in the next couple of years. We're privately held by the Canadian Cisterns Group in cooperation with the chief scientist. And most importantly, we have a strategic partnership agreement with the national water company in Israel named Macrot, so it's a perfect beta site. They sit on our advisory board and really act on as a great value for early stage companies. Just a word about the Stearns Group. Basically, it's the first investment in Israel, first investment in water, and first investment in startup companies. We are looking all the time for additional capital from angels and from VCs, even within, if it's relevant, even within the incubation period, because sometimes, and we're going to discuss about it, really water technologies, this is not internet application or software or whatever. This is, in some cases, it is really a capital-intensive market. It does take time, a lot of capital to get there. Some of those beautiful technologies simply need the money. So I'm going to just finish with a slide about the portfolio that we have. I missed that. Yeah. Here we are. Just to give you a notion of about the 15 projects that we currently focus on, a company named Aqua Digital that has developed a digital flow metering as opposed to a mechanical one. Aquagen. This is a company that we took the IP from the Weizmann Institution and has brought about a solution for cyanoic acid in swimming pools. This is a huge, huge problem, which a lot of chemical companies were trying to solve, but with no luck for so many years. We came up, actually, this company came up with a biological solution as opposed to a chemical one, and therefore we believe there's a true market for that and a true, very nice solution for that. Cooltech is another company. It's a nice company that is developing an on-demand cooling system for water backpacks for athletes and soldiers. So don't think about, if we've been talking about desalination and you think water technologies, desalination. Not necessarily. I mean, there's so many other applications that you could be utilized. So basically the idea is whenever you get a zip from the water backpack, either as a sportsman or as a soldier, and even the US Army has launched a bid exactly about that after the war in Iraq. So that will be like a small device that will cool the water on demand per the zip that you're going to be taking. Water technologies by all means. CTEC is a company, a very promising company that develops and basically in a very cost-effective way produces from the brine in desalination plants magnesium and calcium, which is very, very nice. Aquarius is a company that focuses on leakage detection system. Colmir is a new company that combines ultrasonic filtration steps, basically various steps which are combined into one very impressive step for filtration. TA Account is a company that we just brought to the incubator. We raised additional $250,000, so we are starting that with $750,000.
I'll speed you up a bit, so sorry.
Just that, and I'm going to finish that. This is just a solution for detecting living microorganisms within water, within every production line, basically pharmaceutical plant or food and beverages plant. So again, water technologies not necessarily could be various applications that could range into the industry and other with great potential. So just a snapshot about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So that is an incredible portfolio that is not only deserves a partnership with the Department of Water and Power, but partnerships with any number of people out here, and he will be here to take your further questions and understand more afterwards. David, would you like to introduce?
Can everybody hear me? Yes? I think, can we put up the first slide?
Can you put up the first slide for David, please?
Push the
there we go. It's up.
No, it's up. Now I can go. Yeah. Well, look, good morning, everybody. It's certainly a delight for me to be here with you today to talk a little bit about the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power and the opportunities that I see for Los Angeles and Israel, LADWP, and the many enterprises in Israel to work together going forward in the future. I was with Mayor Villaraigosa in Israel a number of months ago, and it was immediately clear to all of us that there's just fertile ground for collaboration on so many different levels, and it's especially a pleasure for me to be on this panel with my good friend and partner, Asif Barnea, and we've started to do many things together, and I hope will certainly continue in the future. The LADWP, as you've heard, is the largest municipal utility in the country. It provides both water and power to the city of Los Angeles. It employs about 9,000 people. It has an annual budget of about $4.5 billion. And it lets, just in the ordinary course of business, about $1 billion in contracts every year, which makes it an economic engine for the city of Los Angeles as well. I've been credited with being the first environmentalist to lead LADWP. I'm not the first Jew to lead LADWP, but I'm the first Jewish environmentalist. Actually, I'm the first Persian Jew to lead LADWP. This is like, it's like American baseball. You can find a record, all you need to do is narrow the facts. So I have that distinction. But I've long held that there is no real difference between good environmental policy and good economic policy. And we're seeing that come true today as there's never been true in history previously. Today, in the United States of America, it's the environmental initiatives that are the economic stimuli. And this is what you find with the federal stimulus package right now. And I think what is happening in the LADWP, as well as throughout this country, that certainly is a true paradigm. This next slide shows you where our water comes from in Los Angeles. And as you can see, it comes, 85% of our water here comes from outside the city. It comes from hundreds of miles away through 3 aqueducts. And all of those external water resources are under great pressure right now, which puts us in a water shortage, in a drought that we're trying to confront and to deal with. And this is where some of the technologies that have been pioneered and developed in Israel are going to be so helpful to us here in Los Angeles. And I'm talking about drip irrigation systems, for instance. We've just enacted an ordinance here in LA which prohibits outdoor sprinkler use, except for only 2 days a week, only Mondays and Thursdays. But drip irrigation systems, because of their efficiency, are exempted from those kinds of restrictions. Recycled water. We're going to be moving in the direction of recycled water in a very aggressive way. Right now in LA, we only recycle about 1% of our wastewater. In Israel, you're already recycling about 70 to 75% of your wastewater. So we're going to be in the future, we're going to follow a 6-pronged approach with respect to reimagining how we deal with water resources in LA. Recycling, capturing our rainfall, cleaning up our aquifers which are contaminated, different building standards so that we make water conservation a basic part of building design, and storage programs, and you see the various prongs there. Let me move to the power side very quickly, and then later on maybe we can get into more detail. This shows you what our power mix is here in Los Angeles, and Israel is also dependent on coal, as we are. As far as this is concerned, we share almost a similar profile. But in Los Angeles, we can no longer afford to be a coal-dominated utility, because coal is a major culprit in the production of greenhouse gases, and we believe that we have to set an example in how we can get off coal. And that means moving towards renewable energy. In California, just to show you, we've got very plentiful renewable resources. We have the Tehachapi wind resource that you see there in the blue, and we already have the largest municipally owned wind farm in the Tehachapis. We have solar resources, second to none. You see it depicted in the orange color there. And then to the south, in the Salton Sea, we have world-class geothermal resources. We have some challenges. We have to build the transmission in order to get these resources home, but LADWP is in a better position than many others to do that. And Israeli companies are at the forefront of advancing technology, both solar and geothermal, in particular, not so much with respect to wind. The next slide will just show you what our mix is going to be. But in the interest of time, I'm not going to get into that. But if there are any questions, we can deal with them later.
Great. Thank you very, very much. I think you can see from what we just heard from David that since his department is mandated to reduce its global warming emissions to 1990s levels by 2020, he's really aggressively starting to go about that. And right now we're just going to turn over to Ron on his left as a practitioner, who's going to give us a demonstration of his own company, Tigo, and what it's doing in the solar space.
Hi. Oops. Okay. But I just also had the chance to be in the desalination facility in Israel. I was very impressed. And I was thinking to myself, okay, what it takes to just build maybe 5 or 10 of these and finish with all this issue. And then I remember that it's about energy. And that's what we're doing. As a company, we focus on the PV market, and we develop products to improve the efficiency of the systems. What you see here are the pictures of real installations that we did around the world. And this is about the industry challenges. I asked to basically mention what are the kind of top issues we try to address, and I think that I have to change it from challenges to challenges and opportunities. So the biggest one that everybody tries to face now or fix is the cost of the alternative energy. I think that today we are about 3 to 4 times more expensive than the existing energy. It's not an ideal power source. Solar energy is something like depend on the weather, depend on the time of day or the year. There are a lot of issues there, and which we just try to address some of them. And for example, one of the opportunities is basically storage, so people can store energy during the day, use it over the night. Safety hazards. Think about system that you have on your roof that basically carries 600 volt. And one day you try to water your garden and you see that there is some dust and you try to spread some water on your panels, and which is pretty dangerous. Same with the firefighters, which don't really like systems. And in Germany, I just came back from Germany. If they see a fire in the solar field, they do nothing. Just wait until it's going to turn out by itself. The last one, which is also important, we address it and we try to solve this issue as a company, is the availability of optimal space. About 25% of the houses in California cannot accommodate solar. And some of them are kind of pretty optimal. And what we do, we try to also address this issue, and I'm going to explain in a second. Just quickly, what we really do, we developed a hardware which we basically put on each solar panel, and then we have a management unit which resides in the inverter, which converted from DC to AC. And with software and hardware, we optimize the performance of the system. We have R&D in Israel. I'm working in the high-tech industry for the last 20 years, always between California and Israel. I was 5 years in the other side, and now I'm 15 years, or maybe 12 years in this side. And this is part of the reason I'm here. What we really do, by combining this technology that came from the US and Israel, we basically improve the efficiency of the system. We can get up to 20% more energy from the system. We don't need additional capex for the system. And we basically address all the issues that you see here. And this is my last slide. And again, I think it's all about choice. We have a choice to do just better world. I know that it's more expensive today, but as we go to Whole Foods instead of going to McDonald's to just have dinner or lunch, I think that we have to do that and also promote just for us, for our community and the next generation. The last item there is basically a phone that developed during 1984 by Motorola. Cost $3,000. It took about 5 years to develop it. $100 million investment. And today I'm using this phone, and this is what we have to do also in the solar industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I think the mantra is how to do more with less, about which Israel knows a great deal and what everybody in the entire world needs to learn, no matter what the size of your country. I think the first question I'm going to start with is more related both to David and to Yitz, but it comes from the Clean Tech Group. It's a respected group here in California. It had a prediction for 2008, actually, that in 2009, the failure rate of early-stage clean tech companies is going to double from 20% to 40%. So my question really is, what is the criteria for good investment, and what is the key criteria that investors consider when evaluating these technologies, and how can you really find something that isn't going to fail straight out of the gate? Because 40% is a very high failure rate as predicted, and I'd just like to hear from you, Yitz, first, and then from...
I think those numbers are way out of proportion. I think the numbers are closer to 5 or 10%. That's number one. Number two, I think partnering with David and partnering with Mekorot and partnering with some of the leaders, in particular in the U.S., but in Israel as well, is a great way to do away with to lessen the failure rate. And I think that it's a very wide open space right now. Very few people know very little about what the opportunities really are. So I think that we'll start seeing failure rates in 3 or 4 years from now. But right now, it's just start as many companies as possible.
So just to follow up, what would you say is the greatest challenge to make an investment economically viable?
Start working with your exit partner right at the beginning. And that's really the, because there are only 10 of them or 15 of them.
Right.
Identify and start with them now.
I think that for focusing about water for a sec, the total investment, water-related, that is, in terms of the overall clean tech investment, is merely less than 10%. Some say between 4 to 5. I mean, the giants are there, the VCs are there, everybody is looking into water technologies, but have not yet stepped into that to the extent that we would like it to see. Nevertheless, I think that there were some major investments which took place in the last few years, and we shall see that more and more with the support of the various VCs stepping into those early stage companies and being able to support them throughout the ups and downs, and really bringing up a water technology to the market is going to take time. This is not an internet application, not a software that you can download and all of a sudden you have 400,000 employee users on your website or something like that. This will require time, and therefore I think that companies, early stage companies, they first of all have to be focused. They have to talk to their partners and really establish in a very, very conservative market those relationships and have those partners design the specification for them. If this is like water purification, what is the standard of water purification that they are looking to see? Not just to bring about a technology that can detect a certain chemical into the water, but has no relevancy to a certain pain. Mm-hmm. So those water companies, for instance, they definitely should address the pain, neither just bring up a core technology which has great applications.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn now to just managing municipalities. We will come to questions to the wider audience in a moment. So this is to David. Can a government entity really integrate clean tech to service its customers while really managing its budget? And so corollary to that is, would you agree that perhaps the largest problem to solve in regard to water conservation is actually consumer usage and the lack of awareness that they are actually the problem, and not agriculture in the case of California?
Okay, there are a number of questions wrapped up in there, but can I go back to the previous question for just a second, Isabel? Sure. Because I think we are dealing with a bit of a different world right now, because we're just coming through a worldwide financial meltdown. And so the markets, the financial markets, tend to be much harsher critics than they were previously as far as financing new technology is concerned. For us, because I mean our $4.5 billion budget is taxpayer money, we want to see proven technologies with a track record. And so we're not the kind of entity that is willing to just take too much of a risk. But as far as water conservation is concerned, you're absolutely right. The message that we have to communicate to the people of Los Angeles, and which we're doing very vigorously at this time, is that we're all in a water shortage together, and that we have to prefer our kids and our people over our lawns, quite frankly. Yeah. And so we need to make water conservation part of the mindset of the people of LA. And as far as making these financial comparisons are concerned, you cannot compare to the status quo, because the status quo is not going to be the status quo. We cannot compare the cost of wind, for instance, with coal, because coal is not going to stay where it is. We're going to have carbon taxes. We're going to have cap and trade schemes. We have to look at the cost of not taking action not cutting our greenhouse gas emissions, not cutting our pollution. And when we take into account those kinds of balancing factors, the investments that we're making, both on the water side and on the power side, which are more environmentally responsible and more conservative, those look to be good investments that we're making. So I think what is the cost is always a very good question and a very germane question to ask, but it's not the proper question. The proper question is this an investment worth making?
The question of the
This is Glenn Yago, by the way.
just on the question of survivability of clean technology, perhaps it raises the question back to the DWP, and is the level of project financing that's available to absorb the new technology that's coming online. It sounds like we have a great array of very effective VC investment that's taken place in creating that. You know, whether we're talking about the Yarkon River, where David was, where the mayor signed a joint agreement on the LA River. We've got the large LA River project that's coming on stream to advance and apply those technologies at a more rapid level. We've got Build America bonds now within the Recovery Act that will leverage a lot of project financing. How do we get project financing, whether it's in Israel or in the US, available that will really make those companies survive and thrive?
What was the question is, how do we get project financing?
How do we scale it up faster and accelerate it? Say the LA River, let's take the LA River project. That's a great place where some of this technology can be applied.
Well, on the LA River project, we're out looking for as much stimulus money as we can find right now, as you know. You know, I'm going to differentiate between projects that are principally City of Los Angeles projects, because the city is confronting an unprecedented deficit right now, and therefore is facing limitations in what it wants to do. But LADWP is from a budgetary point of view. Can you hear me anyway? Is a separate entity. It has its own budget. It has its own programs. But as far as our move towards a more environmentally sustainable future is concerned, I think we've made remarkable headway. I mean, just 3 years ago, if you looked on the LADWP website, it would tell you that our renewable portfolio is 3%. It was 3%. Today, with a couple of projects that are about to come online, we'll have capability that will be at 15%. You know, that's in a 3.5 year period. I don't know of any other utility that has moved so quickly. People come up to me and they tell me that they've been looking for LA to develop a water supply plan, recycling, rainfall capture, aquifer remediation, different building standards for the past 2 decades. And under this mayor, since I became the GM, we managed to get this plan done and out and promulgated in a 6-month period. And we've had the conversations with the people of LA about the investments that need to be made. And I hope that when we're able to successfully float bonds. Not many entities can claim that, but we remain a AA rated company. We're able to raise money at very, very attractive rates, and I think what it means for our partners is that if we do enter into a partnership, they're then able to take that to the financial markets with respect to their part of it, and I hope that it sends a signal that this is a solid project for the financial markets to support, because the largest municipal utility is backing it as well. So.
Thank you. Let's hear it. Yeah, sure.
I think that basically what's happening in clean tech, mostly in water, we see that now, is the fact that we're building an ecosystem, a new ecosystem. The need to bring about new innovations into the infrastructure is a great challenge. It's a psychological challenge for those kind of old mentality engineers from utilities, which are not used to a new user interface in a new sensor, for instance. And these are definitely financial risks. I think this building up the ecosystem is crucial, and we've been seeing lately some steps, such as in Israel, for instance, the government, part of the National Water Program, is basically to subsidize those pilots. So for instance, if you have a utility, or if you have a municipality that would like to beta test a new technology, they're going to subsidize, they're going to sponsor actually a pilot plan for a new startup company that has a new solution, will come to a municipality and will try to run this pilot for, let's say, a year. And there was some funding which have been designated specifically for that. And last year, actually, there were about 6 or 7 companies which did their beta testing pilots. You know, before talking about scalability and all, you have to show those references. And this is part of the ecosystem that we're trying to build in Israel, aside, obviously, from the natural way of bringing in those strategic partners and opening up the gates for young, innovative companies. But this ecosystem is crucial. Otherwise, they won't be able to go through the next stage.
Thank you. I have time for 2 more quick questions. I'm really sorry because this is a fascinating panel. Please state your name and your
Mark Winter, Codify LLC. You actually just set up the question, and this is for David actually, is that in that ecosystem there's a great degree of dependency. As an investor, I would look at whether the municipalities are really prepared to adopt these technologies and really deploy them. And it's something I discovered recently in looking at water tech. I'd like to ask you, David, about. Well, we really admire what you're doing in Los Angeles. I was struck to find out that Sacramento and much of Central California doesn't even have water meters, and is currently charging flat rates in a drought condition for water. And you know, for example, Fresno pays $23 flat per household. And yet we're doing all these things in Los Angeles. Doesn't that represent a significant problem in terms of rolling these technologies out when there's no political will to get control over water set up in California?
This may be a huge answer, but if you could keep it brief,
I'll keep it short. Let me just put it this way. Mark Twain, the famous American writer, once wrote that whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting over. And you know, this is the truth. But look, I believe, you know, first of all, we have in LA our own water challenges that we have to get over. And then, of course, the question is, how do we share this resource with the rest of the state? Sacramento, they don't even have water meters. And we've got to do something about that. But we only get to do something about that if we're talking from a position of moral soundness. I won't use the word superiority because it has other connotations. So I think by doing these things, by recycling our water, by introducing shortage year rates, by restricting outdoor water use, by doing these things, we're then able to say to other places that they need to do the same things. But I believe we have to lead by example. That's what we're going to do.
Thank you. This is the last question, and then I'll do a roundup with the panel. Thank you.
I'm Goran Matyashevich with UC Irvine, and I was really impressed by the 75% number on the wastewater reuse, recycling. And in Orange County, we have a project, and our Urban Water Research Center is working with the agencies on this big project. But what they're doing is they're cleaning up the wastewater and putting it right back into the ground because of the yuck factor. You know, nobody wants to drink water that at one point was wastewater. So how did you in Israel overcome the reluctance, or was there reluctance?
Let me just say that this is my own belief, but I've been talking to some water experts recently, and at the end of the day, within so many years, we're all going to be drinking wastewater, this way or another. Unfortunately said, but this is really a major belief that we have. In Singapore, for instance, they've been using, after reverse osmosis within the desalination process, so it's quite safe, but they've been pouring back to the aquifer wastewater that were treated in order to custom and make the public aware of the fact that one day they will have to drink those water. In Israel, we don't do that. However, we do bring the water to a level of purity which is to what is called a non-restricted use for agriculture, so either for landscape and for fruit and vegetables, but nevertheless for random drinking. So that is to say, this whole process and know-how of exactly how to do that, the biological treatment and sand filtration, and this whole process, which really was established and has been there for so many years, eventually the water quality gets to a certain degree that you can randomly drink those water with no harm as human beings. We don't do that. We don't shift it back to the system. We do it, mostly we shift it back to the south of Israel, so we use it mainly for agriculture use. But as I've said, the trend is that one day we'll have to go to that, first treatment, secondary treatment, and so forth in order to bring it to a level whereby we shall probably bring it back to aquifers or other water resources in order to be drank by people.
I think there should be a competition in this room to come up with a new word. Instead of wastewater, call it something else so that there isn't this yuck factor that instantly comes to mind.
Let's call it yuck water.
Okay, I'm going to do a quick roundup here. To each of you, I'm going to start with Ron at the end. What is the one takeaway, brief please, that you would like the attendees here to remember and to act upon when they walk out of this room? I'll remember that.
Yeah.
Give that to me.
Okay, thanks. Just kind of a quick note. When I started the business about 2 years ago, my main motivation was to create a new business. And then I started to engage with many people from the industry, and great people. And also I learned by myself how to be green by myself. I mean, instead of just talking about it. So I put my Corvette in the garage, and I'm not driving it anymore, and try to save and do better. So I think it's process. I think there is a great opportunity for us, for all the people here in the room, to do better for the community. Try to do what, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, this is what No? Take yours? No, now it's working. All right. I'd say crisis and opportunity are two sides of one coin. So we are facing in the world crises right now. We've talked about the water shortage situation here in LA. It's nothing compared to the crisis that's going on in other places in the world. We've talked about global warming, climate change, the need to abate the emission of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. This is a crisis situation for the planet. But what it means is that it produces opportunities for innovation and creativity. And the companies of Israel have really stepped up in order to, in many ways, lead in so many areas. And this is a trend that needs to be encouraged, it needs to be cultivated, and the entirety of humanity will be the better for it.
Well, yeah, well, thank you, David, for that. I think that while doing that, I think it's crucial to acknowledge the fact that whatever we got used to as VCs or high tech. Personally, I moved from the high tech industry into clean tech some years ago, and I've seen that this trend now happening a lot with personnel and VCs and investors and utilities being, open up their gates for new technologies. And my message is, do not try to duplicate whatever you got used to in the high-tech industry, for instance, into the clean tech. And that's applicable to VCs and others. This is a totally different market. We have to create and come up with new business models with a kind of very patient and basically not try to see whatever we got or we used to being duplicated then again in a different market, totally different market with its own characteristics.
Yeah, we need 15 minutes because I completely disagree with you. My takeaway is let's go make some money. And the way to go make some money is get on an airplane, go to Israel, look at companies, invest in really, really smart VCs and incubators. I think there's an inordinate amount of money to be made today in the clean energy environment. I think the lawyers, I think...
Be cautious.
And I
Each get your moment in the sun, okay?
Give me a minute here. I get 1 minute. I think the accountants, I think the lawyers, I think just like in the tech business, there's money to be made there. But most importantly, individual investors who have a passion for clean energy and clean tech, get over to Israel, go look at companies. I mean, Bahram has a great company he just told me about. Walk around here, in this room right here, there are 20 different ideas that I think could be interesting ideas. Angel investing, let's stir up the pot and do angel invest. Exactly what we did 10 years ago. So maybe it's an extra year or 2 years to get your money out. Okay, wait an extra year or 2 years, because you also have David's component of it. You have to have the, the spiritual side and the Good Samaritan side, but the other side is let's go out and make some money.
Great. Thanks to all the panel here. It's been a fascinating day.
I want to thank our Rockstar panel. This is huge, and it's here in LA, water from Israel. And with the brains and the talent and the money that we have here on the panel, as Yitz says, do deals together. And I want to thank our panelists. Thank you, Isabel, very much. Thank you, Yitz. Thank you. Thank you, Asaf. Asaf is the tallest man in the room here, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. A pleasure. Thank you.
Wonderful conference today.
Thank you. And thank you, Ron. Keep our energy flowing. Now with that, this conference is all about very exciting things, and clean tech is one of the hottest topics around. But I'd like to invite up someone who is representative of such a great area of technology. Please, siéntense.